kick off the record and start sharing. Can you see my screen? You should see the test wizardry apply to the School of Software Testing.
Yes.
All right, great. So today, as I briefly mentioned earlier, we're going to add some styling and content to our web application. And the next goal will be to try and deploy it so maybe everyone can see it and modify it. So let's start off by going to GitHub again. So github.com/testwizardry. I'll put that back down here. And we've got the test wizardry game is a repository. And we've got a couple more people coming in. But anyway, so the test wizardry game repository, if you want to check it out and follow along, or click fork to have your own copy and you can catch up with me. Yesterday, we added a few pages, the accepted page, the rejected page, and we added some content for apply. So let's go ahead and we'll get the code. And I have it locally, but if you don't, you can here, I'll close down all my other windows. Open a terminal, and I'll just type git clone if you have git installed, and then paste the URL for this. And I've probably got this in this directory already. And we've got our test wizardry game. Now, yesterday we installed Node.js. So you want to have Node.js. I have version 12.16. The latest is 14.15. something, whatever. So if you have NVM, the Node version manager, you can see how, NVM list different versions. So you can see 14, 15, 1, I think we started using, but it doesn't matter. Anything 10, 12, 14 version should be fine. At least as long as it's at least Node 10 plus. Anything we do might work on even Node 8, but I'm not going to try that. And the first thing we did, the first thing we did was install, do npm install, I can't type this morning, my fingers are cold, -g for global, the live server. And we do this to get a web server up and running. And once we have a development web server, this live server will refresh every time we save a file. So it helps to see our results immediately. So if I do live server on the current directory, the .current directory, we start that up and we see we've got our page up. Now we don't have much content here, right? And we don't have really any styling at all. So let's go ahead, and now that we've got our code checked out, we've got our server running. I'm going to open another tab here in my terminal. I'm going to launch Visual Studio Code in the current directory. Let's update later. And so I'll go ahead and spread this out. And okay, so we've got our files. We've got our index.html. Now I had a little bit of a challenge yesterday. I figured it out after class what was going on. We don't need this on the index page, but when we clicked on our that's the YouTube channel. Need to close Windows again already. When we clicked on our apply button, it wasn't working. And we found out from the JavaScript console, it says failed to load. Oops. Well, that's not the error it said. This time it's working. But if we click on the apply, we go to the page apply to Hogwarts, where it asks your name, your gender, and how old you are. Now the problem was when we clicked on send application, it was giving me an error. It's not giving me an error now, and it seems to be working. But let me duplicate that error just to show what was happening. So we go on the apply page, right? We have an HTML form, and our form is named apply. And inside our form, we have the button to send the application. That's this button right here, send application. When we clicked on it, we got an error. So I'm going to change this back to duplicate the error I had yesterday. My page should be reloaded. And I've got uncaught type error. Apply is not a function. HTML input on click. This had me puzzled for a good 10 minutes yesterday. Divya probably remembers that with a little bit of pain and maybe a bit of humor at my discomfort. But anyway, here's what I found out. The form name apply gets lifted into the root namespace. So you have the document object model, right? And every document starts with the document root. So I can go here and I have document, right? And I have document body, and that gives me my entire body element. I have document apply. Now, this gives me the form named apply, and this is technically it's not a bug, but it's a bug in the case of something they won't fix it. Because this is something that was done for convenience way back in the 1990s. The form on a web page is typically something to interact with JavaScript, and so they move this element, which is actually at document.forms. Well, the first form, forms sub-0, apply. This is actually where we get to the actual element, and it's not finding it. So this is another thing that's looking, rather than having multiple forms. Anyway, it's finding the form element named apply, not my JavaScript function named apply, which is actually here. So now when we get this, we get that error, but looking in the console, now if we do document.apply, it's our form. If we do window.apply, it's our function that says, you apply and so forth. So there's a conflict where it finds document.apply because it hoists document forms form1.apply, or rather name apply. It's not even referred to by the ID. And it hoists that, and the JavaScript interaction with the document object module, or the document with the DOM, finds the form named apply before it finds the function named apply. So there's a couple of solutions for this. Now, here's the curious thing. When I just type apply in my Chrome DevTools console, it finds the function. So this is doing it one way. But when I just search for apply in my on-click event, it finds the form. I think that's a bug, or at least an inconsistency between the developer tools console and the actual rendering engine that handles the JavaScript events. I found a report of this since 2009, at least on Stack Overflow. Someone found this issue. But anyway, browser vendors aren't going to fix this. In IE, it actually used to do the right thing when IE had its own rendering engine, or rather it used to do a different thing than Chrome or Firefox. So the moral of the story here is you can't have an action, an event, to trigger a function with the same name as a form that's in the same document. Now, I'm getting this error. The solution we figured out was to change the on-click, the function, apply to Hogwarts. Another way that we could solve that is we could reference it by window.apply. Just a bit of trivia that I thought might be interesting for Divya or anyone else who's following along to figure out what went wrong. Yeah. And here's the Stack Overflow post that explains it. Someone found this in 2009. The explanation isn't quite complete, but it's lifting the forms, the name of the form into the global namespace, which is debatably not a good idea, but it was done for convenience back when web applications were very simple and before they'd realized the ramifications, and they didn't want to break the changes. Anyway, that's a little side note of trivia, and I apologize twice. Once for being baffled and running around in circles yesterday, and now I apologize again for going through this detailed and possibly boring explanation. But the one lesson we can learn here is that JavaScript and the document object model are really quite bizarre and Byzantine, and not necessarily consistent from a simple usage perspective. There's a great talk from probably about 2009 called JavaScript What. Anyway, it explains a whole lot of weird perks in JavaScript where things behave in unexpected ways. It's pretty amusing. All right, so let's go back to what we're doing today. Today we're going to talk about styling, cascading style sheets, or CSS. So what we want to do is, well, let's start just like a JavaScript function, and we can actually remove this. This is just debugging from yesterday. We don't need a button on our index page. So we've just got this apply to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Let's make our link look like a button. Well, first, let's talk about what style is. So a style sheet, and I covered a little bit of this on the first day kind of quickly. A style sheet is a way to describe how your content looks, not how it behaves. There is some overlap and some blurring of the lines between those. But for now, we're just going to talk about style as a way to change how things look. So first thing let's do is let's change the background of our body, right? We can change the background color to whatever we want, right? We can choose aquamarine. And we see it loads up here. And we can change it to black. And we see our heading disappeared. It didn't really disappear. It's just the same font color. So I highlight over this, and I can see that the test wizardry heading is visible. It's just black, the same color as the background. So that's the first thing we can do, is we can change the background color. The next thing we can do is we can change the font color, right? We can change it to, say, orange. Orange red. That's an interesting color. And you can see our font is orange red. We see our link font didn't change. It's still this purple, which indicates a visited link. And I can like clear my cache, I think. I'm not going to worry about that. Like an unvisited link is blue and a visited link is purple. We can actually change that as well, right? So we can do A for anchor or link, this A tag here, A colon visited, and we can change that to whatever color we want, right? We can change it to color. Sure, pale green. Never let me design your websites or they will look terrible. But anyway, so we can change the color. Now we can specify, there's all these default color names, and back in the day there were just about a dozen, you know, orange, red, blue. They've got all these other ones, including like tomato and periwinkle or whatever weird colors you can, fuchsia. color names, but you can also specify it by a number, right? With a pound, and then you have values for red, blue, or red, green, and blue. And the values come in 2 hexadecimal digits. So you can do 1, 2, 3. And this means that it will have a value of 11 for red, a value of 22 for green, and a value of 33 for blue. So they should look like a very dark blue. And that's probably really hard to tell. But we can go all the way up from 1 to 255, right? So if we do 1, and then we do, if we do, so you can do red, green, and blue as either single digits, which means 8 bits, or 2 digits, which means 16 bits. Or rather, I've got the number of bits wrong. But anyway, the idea is it can go from 1 to 16. So, and the way it gets to 16 is it uses something called hexadecimal notation. So you go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then rather than doing 10, because that's going to be 2 digits, to keep it 1 character long, you can do A, B, C, D, E, or F. So it goes up to F. So if I do something with color, and I guess there's also 0, right? So if I do something color 0, 0, 0, 0, 1 is red, green, and blue. Yeah, actually clicking on this thing is going to be cooler. So we can see that it, we can go and we get these different hexadecimal values. This is something in Visual Studio Code. This editor has this cool color editor. I can go here and you can see it changes these numbers. And it can go from either this pound 3E, 3C, or whatever it is, to HSL, hue, saturation, I don't know what else stands for, or red, green, blue, comma. So there's 3 ways to represent it, right? And then FF would be the lightest. So if I have all red, FF red, 0, 0 green, and 0, 0 blue, 255 in red, green, blue, it makes it all red, and you can see that. Or I can go pound FF 0, 0, 0, 0, and that makes my test wizardry heading all red as well. I could also do, if I do red and blue together, well, that will be, what do you think, a purple, or actually fuchsia, which is, or magenta. I'm not sure what they call it. But anyway, it's a mix of red and blue. If I do a mix of blue and green, it'll be blue-green, and I have, you know, kind of this teal or sea green. And the way I would do that in RGB instead of hex is I would do 255, 255. So red is 0, green is 255, and blue is 255. And we can see if I go throughout this spectrum, that it changes those values. So that's one way to change colors. I don't think I actually want to change the text color right now. But let's go ahead and move on to the next thing we can do. The next thing we can do is we can make our links look like a button. Now there's 2 ways we can do that. Oops, I didn't want to go to that page. One, we can just create a button, right? And it creates a button. Or 2, I can style my link to do that. Now, button, I can make my button, oops. We refer to it not with the tag, but just with the tag name in the style section. So button, I can make this, I can make it have a background color of black, we'll say, and a text color. You don't specify text color, you just say color of white. And we can see my button changed here. I can do other things. I can make it, I can give it padding. And I can say that's 10 pixels of padding. And you can see it puts some padding around it. I can change that to 100 pixels. And now I have a huge button. or I can add a margin to it. And you can see the margin goes around the outside of it. And then I can specify a border, right? I can say my border, I want it to be 2 pixels of solid blue. And now it has this blue. Let's make this wider so we can see it. Make it 6 pixels. Now we've got a nice big blue border. And then I can also do, I don't want a solid border. I want a dotted border. Oops, dotted border. So you see we've got dot, 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 or dashed border. And there's several other styles. And Visual Studio Code will actually give you hints on that. So we've got border style, dash, dotted, double, groove, hidden, and then inherit for the initial, inherit from the parent, initial, whatever the default is, usually those grooved borders, inset, none, outset, ridge, or solid. I wonder what ridge is. Okay. Okay, so that looks old school here with the ridge, trying to make it look 3D. Just zooming in there. All right, so there's different ways you can set the border style, right? And there's a lot of different options. You can do border color, which we did, right? Was blue. But our border width is different. We've got 10 pixels. And we can have border style solid like we did. You see it gets rid of that ridged effect. And then border radius. Everyone loves round buttons, right? So we can have a border radius. We can say we have a 5 pixel border radius. Maybe we go 10 pixels. And now we have a round button. Is there an inner radius? Now I'm just curious. Border inner radius. It's a box shadow. So the shadow as opposed to the radius. All right, learn something new. Oh no, the shadow goes around the outside of the border. All right. Well, we don't want any of this. I'm just creating terrible designs. What we want to do is I'm just trying to introduce all these. There's a wide variety of different things you can style. Now, apart from styling something inside the style section, you can actually reference the style within a tag. So for instance, we can go into our H1 tag, we can say style equals, and then we can do color equals red or whatever. So the C in CSS or cascading style sheet comes from that it cascades. It goes from most specific within the element here to most general. So it goes out to the style button. And then we can also have an external style sheet. We can do link rel or relative or relationship or anyway, we're specifying that it's a style sheet. And then we give href or an address, just like an href on a link goes to a web page. We can have a style.css file. And this is what we're going to do. So we load that up. We remove our style from here, our inline styles, and it all goes away. And then we can reference our external style sheet, and I'll go ahead and create that now. All right, so now we can do H1 color is red here. Now we might do something like this. We might do the body color is red, and then we might also say, this is the other part of cascading, that our H1 is an exception rule. We want the color to be the initial color, which is black. And so that goes back, and let's move this into a separate text area so we can see that. We'll make it an H2. So a second level heading. So as you can see, it's still a big, bold, fonted heading, but it's smaller than the other one. And then we have our button apply to Hogwarts and our link. Now we don't actually want a button and a link. We just want a link. And looks like let's style our button, and let's go ahead and remove that that color red. So what we want to do is we want our link to style, but we don't want all links. We only want it to be this specific link. So we can give our link an ID attribute. Now I'm hesitant. I'm using apply for everything, probably because I'm thinking while talking and typing at the same time. So what we want to do is we want to add a border to our link, right? Let's give it a border 2px solid, and we can say inherit. Well, let's keep it simple. Let's make it black. So now we have a border. Let's also add some padding around it to make it look more like a button. Say we give it 10px pixels padding. Now there's another thing to point out, that there are other ways of specifying. Rather than pixels, we can use points, like 12-point font. The points are how many dots in a, well, it goes back to old school printing, that you would have a 12-point font, 12 points high or wide for a letter. Now, there's another thing you can do, is you can say M, the width of an M or EM is like that. So this is essentially saying it's 10 letters wide. You can have relative EMs, which would be based on if I had a font size of 16 pixels at the top. Well, let's try something easier, 10 pixels. Now you can see it would be 10 pixels times 10, or 100 pixels to the edge. But anyway, we don't want a padding that big. We just want a nice 10 pixel padding around our edge of our apply now. We can also change the font, and this is what I wanted to get into next. Font face or font family. Font family also inherits, so I can give it Arial font, which is a sans serif font. I can give it Times, which is the default font. I can give it like a monospaced font like Courier. And you can see the apply now button changes. Now, what I was looking at when we started is I've been looking at all these fonts that might be a potential font we can use for test wizardry. And you can see we've got the Apple Chancery. We've got this interesting Algerian, this Blackadder, curls, whatever. So I'm open to interpretation, but what I've got on the apply website is this one here, and this is one of the Harry Potter fonts. I've got a few of these fonts, and so let me just go to my test wizardry folder and find these fonts. So I've got yeah, I've got this whole collection here. Lumos is the one I used here, and let's see, Blackadder's that scripty one. Magic School, these are based on the Harry Potter book fonts, I guess. Magic School 1 and 2. And then we've got Harry Potter and Perry Hotter and Harry P, all these different fonts. Anyway, let's go ahead and find one of these fonts to use for our logo. Oh, and then I've also got my sorting hat here. And where's my logo? I've got a whole bunch of different. That's not what I wanted to bring up. So yes, this is the font here that we've got. So let me show you how we can get a Google font, Lumos font. Okay, so it looks like this one might not be the Leaky Cauldron. That makes it semi-official, right? The Lumos font. So I can download that font here. And yeah, it looks like I've already got it. So what I want to do is I want to and we can see that this folder is getting a little untidy. So what I want to do is I want to make a directory called fonts. I want to make a directory called styles, make a directory called scripts, and make a directory called images. And now it's even more crowded, but let's move lumos.zip to fonts, and then cd fonts, unzip lumos. Now we've got this lumos.ttf. All right, let me show you how to include a font. So this is going to be a custom font that nobody else has, or that very few other people have. We specify a font URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a font face in my style sheet. So I'm going to call this font Lumos, and my URL is going to be fonts/Lumos TTF. And now what I can do is I can say the body font family is Lumos. Let's make this capitalized. And now we go back to our web page, and we've got our cool, weird Lumos font. Now, I also did some things to make it look a little wilder on this application. Let's see, I did like a capital S, a capital I, and capital R, I think. So we'll go back here, test, I, R, oops. Excuse me, I had to sneeze there. And then we capitalize that. Oh, maybe I didn't save it. Oh, I changed the title, not the heading. Come on, guys, you got to help me out here. There we go. Does that look the same? or similar. Pretty close. All right. Now then the other font I want to use is called Garamond. And this one is the script used in Harry Potter, or rather a version of Garamond was used for it. And we can get EB Garamond from Google Fonts. Now this is kind of cool. Rather than downloading my font and having every user have to upload it, which we'll avoid by making our logo an image, we can download it if we want to. And we can see we've got that. But we can also select it. Now what I want to do is select, I want regular, italic, I want different weights. So the font weight 400 is normal, 500 is slightly bold, 600 is semi-bold, 700 is normal bold, etc. And you can go all the way up to 800, which is slightly more than normal bold. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting all these different styles for the font. And it looks like we don't have a thin version for this font, and that's okay. But what it does is Google Fonts is going to generate a link to my font, or an option to import from the URL. So you can do it from either way. You can link to the font directly with the link tag, or in your style sheet, you can import the URL. I'm just going to grab the link. And what I do is I just paste this here, and well, let me paste it above my style sheet so that I can refer to that font. I don't know what this link pre-connect is. It's probably a way to optimize it for Google. And so you can see my URL. This is the link to the Google font, and it says, give me all these different weights. So, and then the 0 is regular and 1 is italic. So we add the fonts here, and now we can do this. We can say our body font family is EB Garamond. That's what I wanted. So everything in the body will be by default this EB Garamond font. And then if it can't find this font, it will default to the serif font, which is that Times New Roman. So we can see we've changed it a bit here. And then for our H1, we want our font family to be Lumos. So now we have our heading is this funky font, and our default font is here. And rather than a heading, let's make this a regular paragraph. And then we have, well, our link is a totally different font, Courier font, I think. All right, and we'll put our own inline styles, which we don't have any. We'll just eliminate that. Oops, I've got a dangling tag symbol of that, greater than. All right, so we've got test wizardry applied to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The next thing we want to do is we want to center some elements. So, well, the easiest thing we can do is we can take an individual element and we can apply style to it, right? We can do text align equals center. And that doesn't do anything because I realized, well, this is only as wide as we want it to be. So what we want to do instead of specifying that is we want to take our entire group of elements and we can wrap them in a div. So what I'm doing is I'm putting this div or division or divider, which has become the normal block group. It's a container element. A div is a block container and a span is a inline container. So a span on one line, a div can be multiple lines. So now I can say I want my style on my div to be text align is center. So now it's going to take every item here and center it, and you can see all of my items are centered relative to the center of the page if I make the page bigger or smaller. And I can resize my window. And this is a nice responsive layout. There's another way we can do this. We'll talk about using Flexbox maybe in the future. We probably won't have time to get to that. Adventure game based on Harry Potter. All right. So you can see we've got multiple paragraphs here. Now the next thing we want is let's go ahead and put our apply button in its own paragraph, just so it has a container, and we're going to give it a little spacing. All right. So rather than have our div center styling here, it's a good practice to put it in our style sheet. So how do we do that? Well, we could go up here and we could say div text align equals center. And so now when we go here, we can also apply the same style sheet to our other pages by just including those in the header. And automatically it inherits our style that we have on the other one. Now I notice here I've got these 3 lines that are linking to Google. So I think I'll go back to my Google style sheet, and just to make things cleaner, I want to import my URL in my style sheet so that I don't have to have these multiple links in my page. So we go here. I'm just going to remove these. Now we can see I'll probably lose my styling. I lost the EB Garamond, but what I want to do is add it back in here, and let's go back to the home page. Okay, yeah, we've got the right style. And then let's also make our default text font. We want to make this both mobile friendly and accessibility friendly. In other words, someone with poor vision like me, I want a bigger font. So I want a font size, a default font size of about 20 pixels. And then I can inspect my elements, and I will see all my font. You can see my font family is EB, Garamond, Serif. Now, what I like to do sometimes, I like to use a font that I hate, like Courier or Comic, to show, okay, it is using my correct font, because if it's not picking my Garamond font up, then it'll display the Courier font, which is here. And then for my apply now, I want to, let's go with one more font just to get wild. And then I've got, do I have it in here? Oh, here's my sorting hat, and oh, this is the Magic School 1. So I'm going to get that font, copy, test Wizardry, Oh, I went from desktop, test Wizardry. I know I've got my fonts in here somewhere. All right, I'm actually not going to worry about that now. Go back in here. Let's just remove the font family courier from here and clear that out. So I want to make my apply button a little bit bigger, and I want to actually remove the underline. The way I can remove the underline is I can say text decoration none, and now my apply button doesn't have text decoration. And then what I also wanted to do is I wanted to not only give this a padding, but I wanted to give it a margin. I want to give some space around it. So I want to say margin of, let's say 20 pixels. Oh, that didn't work. Yeah, so, because this A is, it's displayed inline instead of block. So now it's a block display that goes across my page. And now I can say if I wanted a 100 margin, it would be big. So let's give it a margin of 20 and a padding of 20. Let's stick with a padding of 10. And let's change the font size to 2 relative M's. The letter M is really what that's talking about. And so now we've got something that looks like a mobile display. But we don't want it to go all the way across the screen when it's full size. So we'll set like a width or a maximum width of, I don't know, about 200 pixels. Well, let's go with a maximum width of 400 pixels. It's set to the left, so let's actually do margin 20 pixels and then auto on the left. And then max width of, what do I say, 400 pixels. There we go. So you can see that's not, when we make it small, we've got kind of an ugly text wrap here. But the last thing I'm going to show you before committing and deploying this is you can test it. If you go to your developer tools, you can test it on a simulated mobile display by clicking on this little thing in Chrome Dev Tools. You click here, and I can see what it's going to look like on an iPhone X. And that's kind of weird. Why does it say 812, whatever? And then I can actually it was because it was in landscape mode. But it's kind of crowded. What can we do? So I'm going to show one more thing here, and that's a meta tag. HTML meta tags tell your browser how to process it. So I'm actually just going to search for it because I don't remember. Yeah, meta viewport. And what this will do is this will say set the width to be the device width and the scale 1.0. Mobile devices try to help people out who go to web pages that aren't designed for mobile devices. And so they'll stretch them or spread them or squeeze them, however they do to make it fit. Now we can see it fits fairly well within our mobile device. So we've got our body default font And it looks like we're not getting the right default font here for as we can see our computed font. Our font family is EV Garamond Courier, but it's definitely displaying a Courier font. So let's change that to Sans Serif. All right. So on the mobile device, it's not getting, or it's not able to interpret that EB Garamond font. It's not doing it here either. What did I do wrong? There we go. It's still working when I do it that way. I think that's the right font. Anyway, so it's displaying pretty good on our mobile device too. That's as much as we're going to get to for today. So let's go ahead and we're going to commit the change, and we're going to do one more thing, and this is going to be pretty cool. We need to git add. We've added some files, including some that we don't really need. All right, I'm going to go to the directory, and I want to find my sorting hat logo, which I am totally open to. So there's the sorting hat. There it is with that Magic School font. So what I want to do is grab this file. Test Wizardry. Test Wizard, is it just Test Wizardry logo.png? I'm copying desktop Test Wizardry. Yeah, okay, yeah, it was just testwizardry.png, 2 images. All right. I'm going to add an image. I lied. I'm going to do one more thing. Equals images / testwizardry.png. And we've got our logo here. Let's make that a little smaller. We want this to be sure 260. Why not for a typo? All right, awesome. See how it looks on full screen, still centered. Anyway, so here's a couple alternate logo fonts. Let's go ahead and add that. So I do git add dot for everything in the current directory on down. Git commit all files. Let's see, we modified our apply and our index HTML files. We've added the style.css. We've included our font for Lumos. We can probably delete this for EB. And then we added a couple of images as well. And I'm going to git push it up to my repository. So now we have our GitHub Test Wizardry game We've got all these other things. We've got our fonts and our images. Great. Now, I'm going to show you how you can use a service called Netlify to publish it. Alternately, I suppose we could just publish it on GitHub pages, but I want to show how to do this. So I'm going to log in, and this is probably going to log me in as a different account. Yeah. So I need to go to an incognito window. It has my credentials cached. Netlify.com and log in. And I'm going to log in with my GitHub account, with my Test Wizardry GitHub account. You can log in with your own or set up a new account. Oh man, good luck on the password. All right. So I want to authorize Netlify to access my GitHub account, because what it's going to do is it's going to grab my source code repository, build the app. We don't have any build steps yet. And then it's going to deploy it to a public web server so anyone can see it. All right. So click next. Free automatic, never have to leave the terminal. So what I want to do is I want to create a new site from GitHub. Okay, I'm authorized. Okay, a little weird refresh problem. So I want to grab Test Wizardry game, and I want to deploy the main branch. And I don't have a build command in the published directory. I think by default it looks for a public folder. Maybe not. So it's going to go into the direct one. So deploy the site deploy in progress. What it's doing is it's doing a git clone, and then it's publishing it to a cloud URL, and it creates this. You see, it says admiring Huggle. If only it said Muggle. I think I can change that. Site settings. Can I change the site name? Yeah. Here we go. testwizardry.netlify.app. All right. So now I can go to testwizardry.netlify.app. And here it is on the public internet. Anyone can go to my Test Wizardry website. They can apply. They can send an application, and you're too young to apply. Congratulations. We obviously don't have enough checks in there, but we're getting there, right? So we have a basic website. We have a couple pages. We have a JavaScript function, which should have determined whether I can attend or not. It gave me that alert that I was too young, but then it went and forwarded me to accepted. We've got some basic styling and some custom fonts. The styling applies across multiple pages, both the index and the apply page, just by including the style on the in the style sheet here. And we've managed to deploy it to a public cloud server. I can actually also go in and I can set up DNS so it could go to testwizardry.com or whatever I want. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a CNAME so it would go to game or demo.testwizardry.com. Anyway, that's it for today. Any comments, questions, or suggestions?
No, Aaron, I think I like the session today. And I
All right.
think I like that part where you deployed the application. That's
Yeah,
smart.
I did want to get to that because it's a really cool technology that Netlify has, working with GitHub or any repo. That's one solution, and for a static site, it's one of the best. There are some other competitors. This is one I just happen to like. Vercel is probably the biggest competitor to Netlify, but there's a bunch of other options. You can also use AWS, Google, Azure. Um, you can even use Alibaba Cloud or Linode or DigitalOcean, some other hosting services that I like to use when I also need a backend. And we'll talk later, when we do a session on cloud deployments, different options. But Netlify gives someone, whether you're building a simple application for development or learning purposes, or if you have a static website like we do now, where it doesn't have any backend, Netlify is a great solution. And it's free, at least for a basic account for a single user, and fairly reasonable otherwise. Now, if you want to get into scaling things up and across systems and having backends and stuff, Amazon Web Services is also a great thing. And like I said, when we get into the DevOps and deployment part or series of the course, we'll talk about how you can use AWS to deploy on a scalable system,
Yeah,
using Docker
sure.
containers and whatnot. Anyway, thanks for your
Thanks,
feedback,
Aaron. Yeah.
and we'll see you guys later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good day, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.
Oh, and one thing I see is Livia, I was having network trouble sometimes.
Yes,
Yeah, and then
just
you
a
mentioned
little
the
bit for
font
me.
caching
Yeah.
problem. Thanks for those comments in the chat. I should have been watching the chat. But anyway, take care.